drugs and the little people and shit like that live.
I mean, that's a typical episode for us. So I
Yeah.
mean, this is everything's. Oh my god! All of the name labels are in their correct spot. What an amazing day! Ooh, wrong.
Hey, look at my flechette cup.
Oop. I gotta bring spots down. But there you go.
You know,
Look
like-
at that. All of our name labels are in the correct space, right? No one turn your cameras on and off, and everything will change.
I'm actually gonna leave my camera off today because I look really frumpy and I'm in a nightshirt. So
I look wretched. Look at the
same.
makeup streak down my face. I slept in my makeup. Oh,
Oh,
I am.
Whatever.
Just
My sweat stains dried,
it's actually
so I'm
okay
good.
for me to sleep in makeup because the only makeup I put on is like powder on my face. That's like very
well, then
easy
you're
to just
fine.
brush off.
Hmm.
It's not like I'm using like creams and shit that seal stuff in and have like a whole bunch of shit. Like that's really what it comes down to is when you're using like creams or concealers, you need to wash it off. But if it's like,
Yeah.
if it's just like fucking highlighter, no, you're good. You
Yeah.
sweat that shit off. It goes like you cannot even keep it on with like setting spray, right?
Just melts.
Oh, honey,
Like I cannot even keep it off my boyfriend's fucking shirt. Let me just say.
Wow.
Pony.
Oh yeah, my one partner came
Or
out as
cat.
trans. My one partner came out as trans mask.
Yeah, I remember
Oh.
last time we got together. We were talking about that.
Yep. Their name is Chris. He uses he, they pronouns. They're who I was hanging out with last night. I try to give them more affirming on the voice side of stuff, even though they do ID is non-binary still, but non-binary like mask, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like we've been going out shopping and doing thrifting and shit. Are we live?
Yes, we are live.
Yep.
Yep.
And like we've been doing shopping and shit, and like they got this really cool like puffer coat. Like the best way to describe it is it looks like those cool puffer coats that say like Supreme and all that. But it's not a Supreme one. It just looks really close to it, and it's like really nice. And we got it for like $20 fucking at the thrift store. And they were gonna buy this other bomber jacket that was really nice, but it was like $130. But hang on. I'm that bitch who knows my shit when I'm thrifting because like 90 to 80% of my wardrobe is thrifted. Like half of this outfit is thrifted. I have to buy the underbust online, but I got this bra at a thrift shop and I've just like kept it together. Yes, this classic outfit is actually just a bra and like an underbust dress. It is not one piece that trips everybody up when they see that. But like
Fashionista.
my bras are thrifted. I don't thrift my panties, obviously.
No,
but like,
no, undergarments, not your intimates.
But no, you can absolutely thrift bras, 100%. Most white people, not even white people, just rich people who buy a lot of stuff don't end up using a bunch, and then they'll either size out of it, like either sizing down or sizing up, and then they don't use it, and then they thrift it, right? So the real trick of thrifting, and you're getting it from the word of the mouth here. Go to a rich neighborhood. You don't go to that thrift shop down on like Bloor and Lansdowne. If you're in Toronto, you know what I'm fucking talking about.
Right.
It's like
you don't
everybody's
go to the
picking
rougher
over that,
neighborhoods.
and like there's like it's not even rougher neighborhoods. It's just a matter of like the really accessible value villages everybody goes to, right? It's like that value village there has a high turnover rate of like how quick items go in there, so people get really fucking aggressive and like try and muscle you out of your spots when you're shopping.
That's
but
a
if
little
you go to
much.
the value village. But if you go to the Value Village just south of Islington Station, that one is in I wouldn't say rich neighborhood, but it's like definitely the quality of the clothing shoots up markedly and the price drops. Like the insane thing that I'm noticing is how much Value Village is like profiteering off of shit out here. Like they've realized that most people are too poor to buy fucking new clothes anymore, so they just thrift. So they're like, oh, I got it. Let's separate the good items out and call it Value Village Boutique. So now they're starting this thing. I know it's horrible. They're starting this thing called Value Village Boutique.
That's
where they separate out items and they like send higher quality shit to a store so they can mark it up and charge you fucking more. So that like the fucking middle class gentrifying bitches who want to go thrifting so they can buy shit to put on their storefront vintage place where they sell the bomber jacket for like $130, right? When in reality that bomber jacket is surplus, meaning that it was like gone gotten rid of by the United States military or whichever military it originated from, but this one in particular was United States military because of the tags. It's plainly fucking obvious when they're actual military tags too. You look at it and you're like, yep. They don't even look like designer tags. It's like big fucking like blah, 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 blah,
ugly,
like
ugly and informational.
It's horrible. Yeah, and it's just like a big square fucking patch in the back, not like little petite tags.
I really hope that like our future of clothing doesn't become that. Like we just buy pants.
No, because our future involves guillotines.
You know? Oh well, I mean that would be nice.
I'm just being real. The world can't operate for how it's operating right now for 20 more years without just complete utter collapse. It's not going to happen. People on the bottom don't have enough to like take care of themselves, right? Everybody's fucking run ragged as is, and the corporations are just like, how much more ragged can you run though? Really though, how far can we push it? Like. Hubris will be what destroys modern corporations because they think that they can get away with anything, and that's always what topples empires.
I think a general strike is in the near future.
Even if there's not a general strike, because that thing's become so like mythologized by how much the phrase feels unattainable. By the way, Scott, I don't know if you're muted or not, but you're muted. But yeah, general strikes definitely feel mythologized and unattainable at this point, right? And I feel like that is a very deliberate thing. So I like to subvert narratives by not calling things what people would normally call it. You just call it a secret third option.
Well, really, and then what it is you need people
to associations.
You need people to wake the fuck up, and that's happening now. It's not happening. It's not something that happens overnight. You know, people don't wake up overnight en masse. So it's a slow progression, and I think like in the next 5 to 10 years, things are going to look a lot different. You know, people are going to be a lot more
it's going to look a lot different in 5 to 10 years. But I think it's less that people need to wake up and more that people need to get desperate, right? Because a lot of people who've been living under the severity of this system are intimately aware already how hard it is for them to operate under it. But they're operating from a square of like, I'm delivering pizzas at 3 a.m. I'm fucking struggling to pay my bills. I'm not the person who has the societal power tokens to like exchange this shit to make a fundamental shift in the structure, right?
We watched a Simpsons episode that talked about this exact thing. So it was whatever it was, Marge was like, we should have this new school in town. So it was like a school that teaches STEM, whatever the fuck the acronym STEM stands for, technology, engineering,
science,
technology, mathematics, science. Yeah.
You all get a gold star. Yeah.
Look, I ain't no STEM bitch. I just have known enough STEM bitches to be able to be like science.
Right. And
STEM
then
bitch twerks.
So like the smart kids, like Lisa was of course in heaven because,
the bitches who got their tuitions paid. Say it what it is.
Right. So Lisa was like, "Oh, this is the best school ever. I'm around all these intellectuals, blah blah blah." Meanwhile, Bart's schooling, his track of schooling is basically just teaching them to get ready for gig economy jobs. They're teaching them how to deliver food and just like
it should be noted that Bart is having just as good a time as Lisa. He loves being an Uber driver. He loves being a delivery driver.
Like he's having a great time.
He's having a great time being a gig worker.
But Lisa sees sees the disparity between the two, the smart kids and the not so smart kids, I guess. And, of course she's like, this is fucked up, we want to shut it all down. And then, it gets all shut down. But actually, I think the school burns down or something. Like it blows up.
Hear me out. Hear me out. Don't shut Lyft down. Just pay the drivers more.
That's it, yeah. But that was the thing so Lisa, she's like, no, you'll never make more than minimum wage. Like, this is messed up. And that's the fucked up thing about gig economy is that it does, like Rue was fucking around with it. And I think you could talk more numbers than, like, I could. But, like, it was not sustainable.
So, let me... Let me get on my soapbox. No, JK.
And I will get on a soapbox right after you.
As someone who has used my vehicle, my 2012 Toyota RAV4, to do Grubhub, to do DoorDash, to do Amazon Flex, to do almost every delivery service except delivering people in my car because I don't want actual people in my car. That is honestly the only way, and even that is not a sustainable way to make 40-hour-a-week salary, $60K a year, which is what I was making as a government worker. There is just no possible way with the cost of gas, the cost of insurance, how terrible people are on the roads, and just what they expect you to do. Instacart pays you $2 an order. DoorDash pays you $2 an order. Amazon Flex, their minimum wage is $17 an hour, which after you count gas and maintenance, you make about less than $7.25 an hour.
But they treat it like a video game, like, because it's like, if you do a shitload of orders at $2 an order, we'll bump you up to $4 an order, and you're like, oh, give it to me.
And there's people out there that are still promoting and like, oh my God, look at the $5,000, look at the $10,000, like all the ads I see on TikToker. Look at all this money that I'm making by making my own schedule. No, honey, you're working 80 hours a week and you're barely scraping by.
Right.
And you have to pay taxes on all of that.
So, like, as somebody who does gig work as a film worker, all gig work is rough in a certain degree. But also, say it with me, motherfuckers, gig jobs are jobs, right? Like,
They are.
The only reason that they suck is because you don't typically have guilds. Well, let's be real. It's because they don't have guilds, right? For those who aren't familiar, in my understanding, I'm not an expert, I'm not a representative of anything, I don't speak for any organization or any affiliation. In my understanding, a guild is a collective group of freelance workers who have collective bargaining power, and a union has seniority and will actually find you work when you're out of work, right? Kind of like in Carpenter's Guild, you'll get seniority and you'll get pulled into stuff. So what motherfuckers in society need to understand is all of these like freelance gig workers can make a guild, right? And I've talked about this before on the group. If you had a delivery drivers guild and you were signed up for it, then you'd have collective bargaining power as all the fucking gig drivers. You get what I'm saying? That's why IATSE is so powerful, or other unions like that, because they come together and they get all these people who do this very specific task to not work that job if there's not fair terms involved, right? It's why we don't cross picket lines. It's why we don't work when there's like strikes going on, right? So if you have every single delivery driver, and I mean like food delivery, I mean cab drivers, I mean Lyft drivers, anybody who's a gig driver who uses vehicle, if they were all to make a guild and then collectively strike until their corporations were to actually meet their collective bargaining demands, the corporations would cave in a fucking heartbeat because they don't have the ability to continue to make income when you disrupt their entire financial revenue system. And when workers realize that through collective bargaining, they have the power to actually win their rights back and take control of their lives, you see massive, big fucking changes, right? That's why, like, I will take a temp job before I even consider doing some scabby bullshit with film. And I'm like very honest about it. I did work during the strike, but it was a Canadian job with like Canadian writers and Canadian actors for air on CBC, right? It's totally fucking different. That is not a picket cross. That is fair game under a whole different like active contract, right? It's not even affected by the WGA strikes. Would I ever do a Drew Barrymore? Fuck no. I
don't
would
pull it
literally
through.
take another job. I will literally learn to be a fucking barista if I have to. And I say that not in deriding baristas, but in I don't have that skill set. I wouldn't say I'm awful at it. I've never worked a barista job in my life, and I would still learn it from ground up with zero experience over fucking scabbing a picket line, right? So if you have all these gig drivers who are willing to not fucking cave and cross a picket line, and people who are willing to not use those services in solidarity, they crumble quick and the workers get their collective bargaining met like that, right? So the more people learn that, the more that we can actually collectively bargain and get guilds going and have like a food service workers guild, right? Imagine how cool it would be to say that like you're in the servers guild, right? That has like
There's a sense of
dignity behind
pride.
it.
Yeah, there's a. It's
Yeah,
not. Yeah, it's not
I'm
like
a guild.
you're a
You're
food
not just like a
server.
minimum wage fucker. You're a
Mhm.
guild member, right? And like, bring back the guilds. Like, what the fuck? Why did we give corporations control over skilled labor?
I think it's
Fuck
interesting.
you. Bring back guilds.
I think it's cool because you're saying guild, which is basically the same as a union, right? So like in the States, we don't really use the word guild for like an organization like that.
Writers Guild of America.
Not often though. Like in general discourse.
Yeah.
I'm talking about in everyday conversation when people are talking.
To be fair, nobody talks about the guild in Canada either unless they're talking about the Directors Guild.
Right.
Because it is a more antiquated term, but I do like bringing back old terms like that with new twist. It's like when we retook queer, you know what I mean? Like if we really retook guilds, we could make a new gilded age that's gilded for everyone instead of the fucking oligarchy, right?
Yeah,
and that's how you get a renaissance.
Yeah, because like right now the word union is like a dirty word. Like it's trying to become a dirty word, right? There's this feeling that, you know, if you mention the word union in your job, people are like, "Oh, you know, like it's bad. You know, we don't want to don't let them unionize. Don't let them do it." But it would be and sometimes that like brainwashing like trickles down to, you know, to people. They're like, "Oh, unions are fucked up. They're bad, you know, like, you know, I don't want to fucking deal with them. You got to pay dues, you got to do all this shit. It's politics." So there is this sort of push to like unions are bad, but what if we rebranded unions and just called them fucking guilds instead? You know what I mean? Like I think that would be like a genius fucking move for the States in particular, because a lot of people don't use the term, you know, union's a bad word now. But if we just called them guilds,
you could apply the structure accordingly too, because to try and set up a union requires a lot more like structure, because you have to have a seniority. You need to track each member. Not to say that you don't track each member of a guild, because you certainly do, right? But like you need to have a network in place to find people work and like assign it to them if you're doing a union, right? A guild, you do have to pay into yearly, right? Like I put like $650 into the guild or something like that before I signed up to it.
no different than union dues.
I get so many collective bargaining benefits. That's why I get like incremental changes in contracts every year. It's because we have the union negotiations. I'm not going to pretend to understand it. I'm very new to the guild. I don't, like I said, I don't represent them. I'm just an associate member.
Yeah.
But it makes a lot of sense to have like a food, like a chef's guild or like a cook's guild, you know, and then like a server's guild or like a clerk's guild, you know, like the merchant's guild, even shit like that. And then it makes
clerk's
people
guild would be
part of that.
Yeah. Also, Scott, I have not heard you in like a hot minute. I don't know if you're muted or not.
I'm muted. I was muted. I was just, you know, I'm just listening for now.
But like, yeah, like think about how cool it is to say I'm a guild member. Like you feel like anybody who's played a fucking MMORPG is like, oh yeah, what's your craft? What do you make? And then you're like, I'm a leather worker, or like, oh, I'm a transport. I'm like a transport specialist, or like shit like that, right? And then like, oh, like imagine how much dignity we get when we claim back our titles and our skilled labor and our craft from the corporations who've wrested control over it, right? And I think that's also another thing that guilds do correctly, is they take the middle management structure of a company and have your guild there, right? So your guild is responsible to you, in my understanding, and this is also what I think what should happen, because I've noticed when this works this way, it works pretty good. But when your guild is responsible to you, more so than just your boss, right? Because like, let's say you're in the food delivery or like the driver's guild, right? And let's say that you're delivering for Lyft and you want to start going over to Uber, right? Your deliveries guild would ensure that any transportation service that you work with would make sure that you meet a minimum standard of required treatment for that job, right? You're not going to take a pay under a certain level. You're not going to accept stuff under like contractual agreements, right? So like it benefits everybody, right? There's really no reason to not just fucking make massive guilds, aside from the fact that rich people don't want us to know that we can collectivize like that. And also, rich people have started to do counter collectivizing like that. Like the AMPTP is a bunch of producers in like a union sort of together. So like they bargain with each other too, and it's like complicated. And again, don't pretend to understand it. I'm very new to this, right? But corporations are kind of looking at that shit. Not even corporations, but like producers and like rich people with money are looking at that shit and going, what if we made a union, huh? So like
a billionaires guild. Isn't that called the Illuminati?
Well, I mean,
you know.
I'm not gonna make statements about the AMPTP, but from my understanding and what I've heard from Adam Conover is that the reason the strikes are going on still is because certain members of the AMPTP are refusing to negotiate because it makes other members of the AMPTP lose money. And they can squeeze out their competitors through their own collective union action. It's ridiculous. I don't even know if you call that a union properly, right?
It's always about someone's losing money. Shut the fuck up.
But that's why corporate unions won't work, because people have solidarity with each other. Corporations will turn on each other the fucking moment they smell blood and water or weakness, because that's all they know how to do.
Yeah,
right?
They're like, liquidate, sell.
It's like the frog and the scorpion, right?
Yeah.
The people are the frog. They always have the ability to cross the water. The corporations are the scorpion. They only know how to sting, right?
I mean, look, they're already trying to build a fucking space colony. So they're like, oh, Earth is fucked. We gotta get out of here.
Good, get out, and we'll fix it. Fuck off,
right?
then, man.
That's I'm with. Happy news.
No,
Flo, Witch, and Chris are in the chat, and we are chatting. Flowitch was saying probably would have problems depending on what laws in the US apply to guilds versus unions. In law language is super specific, yes. But maybe I was just thinking from like a social position, you know, like kind of like union guild. What's the difference really, guys? Come on, you know. To the average person or to the unfortunate souls who are victims of the system and think that they're not, they exist out there. I literally have a coworker who like used to be like, yeah, I used to work all this overtime and I never put it on my timesheet, and I'm like, why the fuck did you do that? Well,
why are you doing voluntary wage theft there, where you're like literally letting them steal money from you, when wage theft is already the biggest source of theft in like
Meanwhile,
existence.
if I work literally a minute over my time, I put that minute on my goddamn timesheet because you're paying me for my minute. Yeah, I
wish I had such balls. I round to reasonable 5-minute intervals.
Yeah, I mean, however you do it, yeah. But
no, this company actually does participate in wage theft, and we all know this.
Oh yeah, I talked about the PTO nonsense before, but like I remember that conversation with my coworker, and I was like, that is insane. Please put every second that you work on that timesheet because you should be getting paid for it. I don't know why.
But like,
I don't know why. I don't know if it came from like a self-sacrificing thing, like. I'm not costing the company money.
Shit.
I have no idea.
My dad did the same shit. He'd always be like, what, you work an extra 10 minutes and you gotta fucking charge your old man about it, right? It's an old world sentiment where you owe your employer certain types of respect, because back in the older world, it was assumed that your employer would give you certain types of respect back. You know, in like the 1960s and the 1970s, if you're a white, cis, hetero, straight man. But like, just say, anyways. People get upset because there is that kind of like work agreement where like, yeah, you got to give your boss 2 weeks notice that you got to quit, even though they can fucking fire you on the spot. You know what I mean?
Bro, I'll give you about 2 seconds notice. How about that?
Or how they can cancel your shift last minute, but won't let you take a fucking sick day, right? Like it's the double standards that constantly apply. They expect that fucking have their cake and eat it too, and fuck you if you won't let them in modern times, right? And so that attitude's shifted, and a lot of people are in culture shock at that point because they haven't adjusted from like the weird 1970s. I give my boss an extra half hour of free fucking time at work every day, and I'm guilty of that too at times. As somebody who struggles to have opportunities, like as a trans woman who comes from a shitty financial background. I struggle a lot financially. I pretty much have to start work a half hour early, other than people, when I'm working in film, because I need to stand out to even be able to get hired, right? And that's the shitty thing, is if you are not of that like privileged few who can just show up and do what's required, and then like they'll give you a pat on the back and send you home and fucking recommend you on the next one.
Like, that's why I'm such an advocate of, I love the idea of universal basic income, because while it would not erase misogyny, it doesn't erase all of the social problems, right, of our society. But if everyone, of a certain age received X amount of money a month, which was enough for them to live on, say, in a very basic capacity, then it wouldn't be, maybe there wouldn't be as much pressure in our jobs, in our professions, to like we would still have to work hard, but maybe not as hard. I don't really know. You know what I mean? There wouldn't be a fear.
Because we wouldn't take undue respect, because we wouldn't have our dignity and our self-respect tied to our basic survival.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what I mean. You have a fallback.
Yeah.
Because if they're like, "Oh, you're fired, fuck you," you'd be like, "Okay, I'm fired, fuck you." Like you can just
I don't
fuck
need this
right
job.
on.
You need me, actually. So get fucked, old man.
Yeah, and because that's how I feel. That's how I think a lot of us feel, but we don't have the bargaining power to go, all right, well, I'm out of here. They'd be like, okay, well, post your job literally right now. Like, I don't care. So yeah, if we were more collectively organized, that would be nice. But also, really, UBI would be ideal.
Yeah, for sure. I think both me and Scott can agree on that. Like, as the currently have no income people's, like, UBI would be nice. I would like to just make my bombs and just do my readings and just live my best witchy life and not have to worry about working a 40-hour goddamn week job.
But I think
and that's the thing
it's shifting though, like that mentality's shifting, because like an older generation would be like, "You lazy sack of shit," for wanting to live like that.
I used to get that all the time when I worked at Harry's. And I'm not trying to talk shit about my family or nothing, but they would do that all the time. Like they would let slip. They would be like, they were like, "Well, you can get a job," and I was like, "Well, I have a job," and they were like, "Well, you know what I mean, like a real job." When I was like reading cards and stuff, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
Okay. So you want me to be miserable for 8 hours a day?
You mean a job where I have to give people my SIN number and pay taxes, huh?
Right.
And I was like, well,
it's called a SIN number in Canada.
Because trying to give multiple people a real reading in one day. Have you ever tried raising energy and then grounding multiple times in one day? You tell me that's not exhausting.
Exactly.
I just skipped the grounding part, bud. You just fucking live wire that shit 24/7.
You're just on all day.
The only problem is at the place that I was at, and I did this multiple times. I did it twice. I was reading into somebody at the same time someone was working on them, and I got my ass handed to me because I ended up through the person working on the person in front of me. I fell in sort of like, at one point, the one guy was the worst. And I remember the person's like, "I don't know what's going on. My life is falling apart. I need a reading, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Cool, let's," they were very nice. I sat them down. And I'm sitting there, and now this is like only like I think it's like, it was the shorter reading. It was like a 30-minute reading. And I'm sitting there and I'm reading, and all of a sudden, the cards become completely useless because everything is just taken over by the psychicness. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the table, but I'm looking down at somebody doing something else somewhere else. And I remember the person in this vision looks up at me as if he saw me there. And I remember it ends this visionary experience ends very quickly, and I felt like shit. I was cold sweats, dizzy, all this other stuff. Now the reading ends, and the person, they're like apologizing because they watched this happen, right? And they're like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I'm like, "You have nothing to apologize for. You didn't do it, blah, blah, blah." Because like it was a very clear, obvious magical attack, right? Like it was very, 1 second I was fine. Next second I was not okay at all.
You're like, "Oh wow, I'm not fine anymore."
Someone's like, "You gonna read the cards on my mark, bitch?" And you're like, "Whoa, I don't know what I walked into. Calm down."
Right, and then then all of a sudden I remember Sonia, who I used to call Mama, and she comes in and she grabs me by my shirt and she goes, "Get over here."
Oh.
And she goes, "What did you do?" As she's like pulling like all her stuff that she did to like take it off. And she goes, "What did you do?" And I was like, "I didn't do anything. I was reading and then I saw this thing." And she was like, "Oh, you read into okay." She's like, You watched someone curse someone." I was like, "Oh, okay." She's like, "They were in the middle of it and they didn't like the fact that you saw them." And so she's like taking it off of me and she's like rubbing me down with oils and shit.
It's like a stray bullet.
It's
So,
like exactly like a stray bullet.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you're trying to magically shoot somebody and someone's trying to put a shield on them and look into it. So they're like, "Well, fuck you," and take a shot at you, you know?
Exactly.
Speaking of magical bullets. Oh, sorry. Continue, Scott.
Being a witch for work is real work.
It is. And we
Yes,
should
it
have a
is.
witches guild while we're on the subject of guilds. Or an occultist guild or whatever.
Look. If you want to legitimize guilds in modern American mentality, I don't think having a witches guild is a wise idea.
Listen.
Also, too,
it's a little too
I can
much
dream.
too quick. Just saying.
I can dream.
Also, witches can't even decide. The most like
we don't deserve a guild.
Occultists and witches are just like, it doesn't work that way, and it's like, well, it does in my tradition, and it's like, how about y'all stop arguing?
You can't even get 25 of us together anywhere without big fights breaking out. We will fucking find a reason to want to shank each other.
We consistently get 3 to 4 witches together on this podcast, and we do all right. So we can set an example for the community.
I was
going to take it further. We get at least 12.
This is small coven shit right here.
Yeah.
This is small coven shit right here, though, right? Even small covens can get some drama, don't get me wrong, but it's not like in the fucking big, depersonalized 25 plus motherfuckers, right? Shit, yeah. I'm just throwing 25 out as like a weird benchmark, but I feel like anything over that, shit starts getting wonky, you know?
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of fair. This kind of when Scott, when you were talking about your witnessing someone being cursed, like a magical stray bullet thing. It brought me back to what we were talking about last night after the ritual, how I was talking about like having like spell slots, like spells at the ready when we were talking about incantations and stuff. I did kind of want to pick everyone's brain because I thought of this would make a little fun little sort of thing to brainstorm about. So like, how many categories of spells, like if you were to take spells overall and break them down into some basic categories, how many categories do you think that would be?
Okay, so here's the problem. You're not defining how you're breaking it down. Are you breaking them down by complexity, by caster level, if we're going to reference it in a D&D way? Or are you talking paradigm?
I'm talking about, so it's probably, what sort of spell, like it would be like a spell that you mentally, like a mental spell with an incantation is kind of the thing that I'm thinking of. Something that you're walking on the street, something happens. Yeah, I mean,
divination.
So like
each of those, I guess.
Okay. Because there's this.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, what are the categories? Like, how would you break down the categories of spell crafting? Like, you have your protection spells, you have healing spells, you have your curses, your hexes.
Nah.
Like, how would you categorize magic overall? I guess
a whole system here, and I did not make any of it. So let me just bust this shit out.
I was just listening to there's a gentleman on TikTok who I really enjoy. His name's Thumper Forge, and he was discussing I know it's a chaos magic theory that like apparently the chaos star essentially, like originally each spoke sort of talked about a sort of classification of sort of, it was more broken up in like intention of magic, like
okay, like a category.
Yeah, but it was like broken up into like color. It was really fascinating. I don't know. Again, he himself did not make this. Apparently, it's from the origins of chaos magic. And there are countless brilliant minds who went into making the tradition of chaos magic. But it was fascinating. I don't really quite understand all of it because it was only like in a passing video. I'll have to sort of go back and look for it. But it was interesting to like see like I know it was like color coded, and like red magic was considered like war magic, defensive,
Okay.
offense. Like, and
Yeah, that's what I
it was
mean.
interesting because like love
Yeah.
magic was in the red.
So
it was interesting.
I'm gonna hit y'all with the Mage the Ascension. Have you heard of that before?
Yeah,
Sure you have,
we've
right?
talked about it on
Yes.
here.
So here are the 9 spheres of magic,
9.
as according to Mage the Ascension. Yeah.
Okay.
You have correspondence, entropy, forces, life, matter, mind, prime, spirit, time. So the
Okay.
9 spheres are related by the following. Prime, which creates a conception in the mind, which gives focus to create spirit, which is given form by forces, matter, and life, which is perceived by correspondence in time, which gives way to entropy, which causes everything to return to prime.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Most of the
I would have to.
traditions
I think I'd
believe
have
that
to
there's a
read
10th
it to
sphere and
grasp.
it represents unity, one of the few concepts not represented in the other 9 spheres. So I can give you a little bit more insight into them by clicking on them. So
I
for
was
example,
thinking.
correspondence magic allows powers such as teleportation, seeing into distant areas, levitation, and flying. At higher levels, the mage may also co-locate themselves or even stack different spaces within each other. Like this is actually made by people who do magic.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
entropy concerns itself mainly with the study of order, chaos, luck, and destiny. So, side note: this is the grounds of a lot of chaos magicians where they thrive, is the entropy. From this sphere comes the study of order and randomness, and thus the study of totally random creation and destruction. All things dissolve and eventually into haphazard components and similar events from disjointed, unconnected patterns. Forces. Forces is the sphere of energetic patterns, among them heat, light, vibration, radiation, and gravity. Forces are constructs of quintessence and motion. Every force has its own unique properties, but they all share a common root of prime swirling through a pattern. So forces is like very basic energy stuff like light and shit. Life governs those patterns that grow, evolve, and eventually change. Yeah, I shouldn't read them all out. Go on.
In terms of categories of magic, I was thinking more terms of like everyday stuff that kind of happens. You know what I mean? So like to have spells at the ready, like Rue was saying, a protection spell, right? That's like the default a lot of people go to when you think about categories of magic. So like I think of protection, healing is kind of like right off the bat. Those are the first 2. And then I kind
Almost
of
like
go
we're talking more D&D classes.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, because I'm thinking it more in terms of spell slots. So like I'm me. I am a real wizard. I am a real sorcerer, whatever. And I'm walking around in my everyday life and I pass this person in the street and they clearly toss something at me. Whether they intended to or not, something is coming my way. I recognize this in my wizardly senses, and I have a spell at the ready to counteract that. So, like, that's what I'm thinking of. Like, how many spells do you think the average everyday mage should have at their disposal? Like, how would you break down the base categories of spells that you would need?
I'm not going to give you the recommendations of an everyday mage because I want to one-up that shit, right? The first tool that I think every mage should have is power word no. Okay? You know what I mean, Scott? You know what I'm talking about? Power word no.
I think they're muted.
It's like
again. I
muted.
was looking up this thing. I was listening, and yes, I think I get what you're saying, but go on to describe it so that way I can
It's
see if I.
actually a reference to an old D&D spell, Power Word,
Word,
and it could be like
yeah.
Power Word
Used to have
kill,
those.
and you'll kill something with Word of Power. It's like commanding the universe, no, that does
I
not
see.
happen. So you can do like Power
full
Word
stop.
no to stop a critical hit from like killing someone, right?
Mhm.
Mages will actually often invoke what we call Power Word no under a moment of crisis when it's like required to save someone's life, sort of
So
thing, right?
I feel like that falls
You can't
under
just Power
protection.
Word no under kinda, but also sometimes you're just like literally it's a raw will spell, so you're just casting it at the universe and acting through correspondence to be like, this will not motherfucking happen.
You know what?
You
I
know,
think
and you like assert all of your being into it. Or
think
even
I've
like
done
this
that
will
before.
happen.
I think I've done
Mhm.
that before. It was me and Rue and Ken. We were all in the car. We were going through an intersection, and someone was turning, and they were not paying attention. And I don't know how we did not collide with this car. I have no idea. But all I remember is I had my hand out, and I said, and I was like, no, 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 and I said it 3 times. And Rue is also a NASCAR driver, I'm convinced, or a stunt driver, and like did a little maneuver kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, between like your maneuver of the car, and then I was just like, no, like I just felt so focused in the fact that I was like, we are not going to hit this car. There will not be a collision, and there wasn't.
No, you are 100% right.
That's
And
Power
I
Word
know.
no.
Yep, I would like to just Power Word no is a very very powerful thing that everyone should know of. I would classify it as protection because as you no is a complete sentence, and no can be a very important sentence for anyone to learn, especially young AFAB people. And in that moment also, as you described, yeah, I don't know how we didn't collide in that moment, and it was
No
just
idea.
99% of the time when I am driving my vehicle, and if I do some crazy maneuver, it was literally like a Jesus take the wheel moment. Like I don't know what I did to avoid that accident, but I did it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, okay, so Power Word no, I like that, but I would categorize that under protection. So, having a protection spell. So that's your one spell slot. So then what would be sort of the next thing? Like in your every day-to-day
And I
life.
know for folk magic, it's pretty big to have like I always jokingly called because in you guys seen me do this before, the Italian hand signatore.
Yeah.
Sometimes we hold the mano cornito, which is the horns, or the mano fico, which is a little bit different. It's the hand held into a fist, but the thumb between the pointer finger.
Mhm.
But
Yes.
with the horns, you can not only does it protect you from the evil eye, but if you want to jab someone with it, you can also kind of give them you could put it on. Some say you could put the eye on them with it, but I honestly think it's more of like it's like a magic shank. It's like
An
here's a
offensive.
jinx for you. Like take your shit and take it back. Like bam.
So yeah, like
So it's
slapping
kind of
somebody. Like a
yeah.
So so it would be protection and then something like offensive, like an offensive sort of outward, I guess
Yeah,
offensive
the
would be
way
the
the reason why I
category.
like the Signature is because it's both reflective and it attacks. So like if they're sending it at me, it sends it back them. You know what I mean? But like I'm
It's a
cursing them with
bounce.
their own shit.
The mirror.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe instead of calling it offensive, maybe like you would want a bounce spell.
It could kind of be like that. Yeah.
So protection, a bounce, but then some people, if you do want to fire off something at someone, there are moments, I suppose.
And again, you could use that, but I think there's tons of things that you could use. I mean, there's also like just simple words like one that I've used before. There was this lady at a oh my god, a storage place, and she got really rude with my mom, like really rude. And she kept getting rude with like everybody. And it was over something really stupid. We were trying to throw out stuff like old cardboard boxes and stuff in the big trash bin. And she started screaming at my mom and being real disrespectful. And then she was like screaming at everybody else who tried to go over there and do the same thing.
Oh my gosh.
And I found this really wonderful, very simple curse, I guess. And it says, as you have delighted not in blessing, may they be far from you. As you so have delighted in cursing, may they be upon you. Right?
Like
It's
that.
just, it's again that sort of like
Like a right back
confining.
at you, bitch.
That's mean.
I kind of like that because it almost was like a binding in the sense that like
Mhm.
both the signatore and that what they're doing is essentially like it's essentially like let's say someone is trying to like choke you and you somehow manage to take away the rope they're trying to choke you with and you choke them with it instead.
Right.
You know, like that's essentially what you're doing.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Right. You're disarming them and using your own shit on them. And it's
It's
like,
an
what are you
Uno
gonna
no
do now?
you card.
Right. I like that because it's really hard for people to take off their own shit off of themselves.
That is true. That is true.
I mean, it's easy,
So
but most people don't know how.
Fair. Yeah, uncrossing yourself is hard for a lot of people to do because a lot of people struggle with conception of the self.
Right.
Side
Yeah.
note,
Ooh, very
so
good.
if you I'd do something.
No, sorry. I was like, you got an A+.
Yeah, thank you. But also, so if you want to break it down into really simple RPG terms, I was kind of going it over in my head, and you got this. You got offensive, which is like if you're fucking throwing out, right? You got defensive, which is like your general protections, your wards and shit. You got enhancements, aka buffs, right? Like if you have a magical enhancing shit that you put on yourself and you develop shit to enhance your senses or like what the fuck ever, whether it's like an amulet you wear, whatever. There's totally the buffs category, right? And then there is the not everyone does this one, that's why I wanted to suggest it. The information gathering like category. A lot of people just kind of like run through life with blinders on. They don't deliberately like try and read magical currents or like create a construct or something to like go and take a look at shit or like find a magical friend who will like let you fucking know if stuff's gonna happen, right? Like something to get some type of feedback on situations coming ahead of time, whether it's like like a fucking radar system that you built up yourself that can like detect negative events coming towards you, you know, like shit like that. People really do need to start thinking about like the information gathering aspect of Magic because there is a lot in that we tend to not look at, right? And then also I'm just gonna go ahead and say visualization is a whole fucking category, right? Because like people will do direct visualization manifestation and they'll call it manifestation because they don't even think that they're doing magic. They think that that's just like so whatever new age word they believe in, right? Because magic is magic regardless of whether or not you believe in it, right? So somebody who fervently believes in what I call negative pressure, aka, hey, I don't want to water the garden, could you go get a car wash for me so it'll rain? That kind of magic, right? Because if you wash the car, it's gonna rain, right?
Oh yeah, that's how it always happened. Yeah.
To ruin your wash job, but that's negative pressure, and it's because we kind of feed and believe into those systems so much that they can be so fucking reliable. So like we had a running game with it when we used to play Overwatch with a friend. We'd be waiting for a game, and I'd say, "Queue us up for a custom game." And as soon as you fucking load that lobby and you're ready to do the custom game, and you're not thinking about the game coming, sorry, fuck your custom game. You're in the game now.
Well,
right?
yeah, it's light a cigarette and the bus
learn,
comes. You know,
you can weaponize that shit. So that's visualization.
Oh yeah, like I've done that before. Yeah, like I've literally like, man, this bus is taking forever getting here late. I lit a cigarette and there's the bus rolling down the fucking street. So I'm like, all right.
Almost like a ritualized act. But yeah, so visualization and direct manifestation would be one. I think the categories really depend on how you interact with Magic, because some people do think of it more in like an RPG sense, and like if it works, it works. Like power word no is literally a change on the 3 different power word spells that I looked up in the player's handbook while I was not talking. And the 3 are power word kill, which can kill a character under 100 hit points. And I hate to break it to you, everybody here is under 100 hit points. We are not over fucking 10th or 12th level. You're probably, unless you're like a barbarian, not going to break 100 hit points until you're like level fucking 9 or 10, right?
5e
not a good time.
D&D, you are very squishy at level 1.
It's not that you're very
Very
squishy
squishy.
at level 1. It's that everything else is super dangerous. And you can get a dangerous 2, but you need to break into the danger. You can't just start fucking
Well, it's like a level 1
going out,
wizard is
dragging
like
out of nowhere.
a spell slot. It's like, you're done.
Okay, to be
the
fair,
one.
no. Wizards get cantrips, which are some of the most powerful things in the
Yeah,
game if you know how to
that
use
is
them.
true.
There's spells that you get to cast indefinitely, including attack spells like Firebolt. So Firebolt is a ranged magical attack spell that uses a DC save rather than an armor class. And if somebody is fighting a fighter, see, this is because I'm a dungeon master and I played a lot of D&D. So like if you're fighting a heavily armored character, their touch armored class or their magical save DC is going to be easier to hit them with a spell than it is to hit them with a magical, like to hit them with a weapon, right? Because it'll bypass their armor. They can't dodge very well in that full plate, right? So yeah. So yeah, just little wizards actually really do fucking slap if you know to use magic missile. Actually, nah, magic missile's only good at high levels because then you can like blast off your level 1 slots and be like, attack them won't miss, pew 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 pew. But like, telling you, Firebolt and Ray of Frost, and now I'll shut up about cantrips.
Well, I guess like in a way that's kind of what I'm thinking of, cantrips, things that are your bread and butter spells that you use all the time. And I think I don't know, like, are there any that you kind of have at the ready? Like for example, I remember long ago, like Sophia, I remember you were saying like I could just bust out the LBRP like whenever I need to, like you have that like memorized.
I could
like,
do a banishing
in a way, like that's in your spell slot, like you could just fire that shit off.
So because I'm
What'd you say, Scott?
It's casting wise.
Oh no, wait, Scott was saying something.
Scott.
I was just gonna say that's another really important one too, especially for magical minded people. I know it's annoying for a lot of people, because they hate, like, because they always say, like, it's this paranoid outlook if you think that, like, you're always coming across something, blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter is that even Paul Hewson, who wrote Mastering Witchcraft, which is an outstanding book, even he said when you initiate yourself into this stuff, regardless of tradition, a sort of a bell rings out into the ethereal, and everything there can see and hear you, so witchcraft, upon your initiation, whether it's spirit initiation or initiation by people, you change, right? Like, witchcraft changes you, you're different. And
yeah,
when that happens, it just becomes easier for us to stumble into, I don't know, we're walking with our friends, going on a nature walk, and you stumble into the habitat of an elemental. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the kind of shit that just happens to us. But that's because of the way we orient ourselves and the way we move through the landscape. It just is going to happen to us more often. So having the ability, like, especially for something that maybe you can't reason with, like elementals, and I'm not talking like the Sliffs or the Undines or anything like that. I'm talking about like those like classical, like, elementals that don't fit in anything else. They're just like a hodgepodge of, like, they're like pigs with human faces that smell like sulfur. Like, those things that aren't really, they're more like wildlife of the ethereal than they are than like anything else. You definitely need to be able to just be like, away with you, and just shut the interaction down completely. So yeah, having something that sends shit away is super fucking important.
So, like, Scott, in your case, say, you're walking down the street and I don't know, something, you stumble upon a place that is interesting, it has a vibe. It has a vibe to it. What is
Yeah.
the thing that you default to start gathering information?
Oh,
Like, what's your bread and butter spell? What's your maybe not spell, but like
so
whatever you would call it?
I automatically just resort to like psychism.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to center myself. I try to breathe through any of the physiological and psycho-spiritual emotions that come with liminal or haunted places. Um, you have to try to find your center in those moments, and you have
Mm-hmm.
to just be able to look with your witch eye, your third eye, whatever the hell, and you have to be able to remain impartial and to accurately be able to gauge exactly what you just stepped into. Um,
So that could be like an idea for an enhancement spell come in, right? So suppose you're in a place and you're like, okay, this is an interesting spot here that I've stumbled upon, and then, maybe to enhance your psychic abilities or your awareness,
yeah,
that is where your enhancement can kind of come in. So maybe it's a talisman that you pull out or an incantation that you just
yeah,
say.
it could be, yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, also too, if you're, I mean, if you're, this might be a little bit more difficult, but there are some people that do carry around powders and potions if you're so
Mhm.
inclined for that kind of thing. You
A
could
little
also do
cumbersome
like certain
sometimes.
flower essences might be of use, um,
Mm.
that kind of thing. But yeah, there are incantations that will heighten the second sight. Um, I can't think of any off the top of my head at the moment.
But you
You
can
can
wear a
also
Um,
write
hagstone.
your
We
own.
all know that one off the top of our heads.
oh, and a
Mhm.
key, yes, and also a skeleton key. They work very similarly.
Mhm.
Or yeah, yeah, skeleton key. Or no, not skeleton. What iron key? Key. You know what I'm talking about.
The old key,
Um,
antique key, however
Hey
you
yeah,
want
the
Scott,
to.
look at the
antique key.
camera.
Yeah,
That
there you go.
exactly. Thank you. um,
A key, a key.
so those also work exactly the same way for this exact same purposes as a hagstone. In case people didn't know. Um, what was I gonna say? Yeah, those work. Um, but then I think also too, with like again, I know we're talking specifically about Magick, but also like having the ability of discernment in those
Yes.
moments is also like incredibly important.
Someone
Like
being
there are
rude to
times,
you is not as always a magical attack, you know?
right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you gotta like sometimes you're just in something or someone's space
Yeah.
that you just don't really belong in. You walked into someone's home maybe without asking, which, you know, maybe if you step back outside of that area and introduce yourself at the threshold and say, "Hi, maybe you wanted to pick that flower or get some of the bark from that tree or whatever it may have been,
Mhm.
you know, you have to remember your spirit working as well. Like we have to, I don't want to like divert from what we're talking about, but this is all kind of part of this thing, right? Like as practitioners, we have to remember our spirit world etiquette. Like there is an etiquette to this stuff, and
Mhm.
if you just try going in and kicking down spirit doors and just be like, "Hello, bitches," and it's like, okay.
You're
It's
gonna
one of
get in
the
trouble.
It's one of the things I really like about the Gray School is they are very big on etiquette. Etiquette just amongst, your fellow wizards, and they're very particularly about, if you're addressing your professor, they are Professor so and so or Dean so and so, whatever their title is. Um, but they're also like, etiquette in terms of magical things that you are doing. You are supposed to be respectful of this world and all the other ones that exist.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I think is very beneficial, usually to someone who's starting out. If you're the kind of person who needs a little maybe more discipline, studying magic,
Yeah.
so it could be
I
a
mean,
good
and
route
I
to
know
take.
how hard it is, but see, I guess that's my thing. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad we brought that up because
Mm,
yes, keeping a banishing spell in your pocket is great,
mm-hmm.
but when
Knowing
do
when
you
to
use
use
it
it,
and when do
yeah.
you not use it?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we're trying to say. It's like use it when you actually have to, because if you try to banish something that either shouldn't be or maybe even can't be, um you're just gonna get either hurt or cursed or
And
a
sometimes
whole
you're
host
gonna
of
fuck up and you're gonna banish the wrong thing. It's gonna happen. We've all done it, and we will continue to. Like, everyone makes mistakes in their
yeah,
magic, you
sure.
know, where it's like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or maybe I did. You know, we're always gonna have those moments, no matter how long you practice. So, you know, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. No one's perfect.
Yeah.
Not
You know
even,
what's
you know.
also really interesting is how often fiction will work to incorporate real dead-ass magic into
Because it
its
is about real magic,
shit.
I'm convinced.
Because, for example, in D&D, a third level spell is called Banish, and it's temporarily send a being to another plane of existence. If the being originates from that plane, I believe there's a stipulation that they can't return unless they have like the ability to travel interdimensionally, which is a pretty high level spell. So it's pretty based that like it seems like it's something that's super complicated, but actually most competent magicians can muster a banish spell pretty reasonably and just be like, "Fuck you, get out" in our universe. Whereas opposed to in like D&D, banish, like I think it's a third level spell, which means you got to be like fucking, yeah, you gotta have done a lot of shit to be able to learn to banish stuff. Although granted, in their universe, like you can banish like a corporeal form to that universe. You know what I mean? Like their whole ass body goes, and over here we are technically only banishing things back to like other places. So it's not like the same thing. You don't want to mistake the territory for the map or the map for the territory. You know what I mean? But
Something
yeah,
I
it's
would love to do, just me personally, and also like as a community project, I think this would be fun, would be to take D&D spells and write them into spells that work in this reality. I think it'd be a fun project to do.
Oh wow, banishment is a 4th level abjuration spell.
By the way, I did find the concept of the 8 forms of chaos magic created by it's in Liver House by Peter J. Carroll.
Okay.
It's a pretty old school book, although popular. And it's interesting. So
I think
he
I just
breaks it
picked that one
down
up.
into colors. There is Octarine, which is pure magic. There is black, which is death magic. There is blue, which is wealth. Green, which is love. Yellow
That's
is ego
interesting.
magic. Purple is sex magic. Orange is thinking magic. And red is war magic. And then it goes on. Pure magic is integration of the self and connection to the divine. And then death magic is things like necromancy, destructive magic, vampirism, etc. Wealth magic is money spells, prosperity. Love magic, developing and or maintaining romantic and platonic relationships. Ego magic, knowledge, success, illumination, and illusions. Ooh, that's interesting. Sex magic, self-explanatory, it says here.
Right.
But also spells involving creativity and general fertility. That's cool. Thinking magic, magic for work, strategy, gambling, risk-taking, boss fixing, etc., etc. I added that last one, but it all just fits. And then war magic is conflict, defense, protection, etc.
I like that as categories. That kind of like really breaks it down. So you said it was 8?
Yeah, the eight forms of chaos magic.
8 forms of chaos magic.
I will post. I have 2 links here. Hold on. I'll post them. Keep talking, everybody. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you can post them in the voice text channel.
Just right here. Okay.
Yeah, or really wherever, it don't matter. Or Theory and Practice, I could repost them anywhere we would need to.
All right.
Oh,
I'll
speaking
just
of the
post them right here.
Discord, I've booted the bots. They're out. Bye bots. They were
And
too
I've also
confusing.
changed role permissions so everybody should be able to view the general channel without having that be an issue. If you don't have the ability to see it, reach out and get in contact with us, and we will fuck with the permissions again.
Yeah. We had the bots in place. There were some unsavory types trying to infiltrate, but I think that situation
An
kind of been
unsavory
resolved.
type. It was a singular
Yeah,
person.
it was a singular person, honestly. But I think it just kind of made it more complicated for those who are not super familiar with Discord to get into the Discord. So basically, we're just gonna, work together as a community to, if weeds start growing in here, the weeds that we don't like.
You take the sickle and you cut off the head.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm gonna have Scott ban you. So if you can piss off Scott that bad, then well, you deserve to be banned. Bye.
I'm the litmus test.
I'm gonna give you the ban hammer, Scott.
Let me
I'm
think.
all out of focus.
What was I gonna say? I had something smart I was gonna say.
Well, any closing thoughts or remarks would be good right about now. We're an hour and 6. I didn't say a minute 6 like I usually do.
I think just for my I think that protection, banishing. What else did we say?
Like offensive.
Reflecting?
Yeah,
Information gathering.
reflecting.
Yeah.
Information gathering.
Don't forget your buffs, your enhancements.
Oh yeah.
Maybe when I go to edit this, I'll write it all out and then I'll share it in the Discord.
That's a good idea.
When I go to edit
it's
this
like
later.
I also can think of like one thing I find very useful, especially living in a city like Philly, is invisibility spells. Like I do not
cloaking.
I don't go to the gym now without spraying myself with an invisibility spray. Like I am like, nope. I mean, now it's funny because the spell weakens once I'm at the gym because I start engaging with people. But all I have to do is sort of just lean back into the sensation in my mind and just sort of re-up it in that psychic way, and then I can walk back home in peace. But yeah, like cloaking, illusion, or invisibility, what have you.
Cloaking, yes, because
Super
there's many
important.
situations. I do that very easily. I've been doing it my entire life. You know, I was very much that kid that would, if confrontation started, I made myself scarce, whether it was me actually just vacating the premises of wherever the shit was going down, or just me sort of like, I'm not here. I am but a fixture in the room. So yeah, that's something I kind of naturally lean toward, but it is a very, very useful thing to have, especially, you know, you just don't want people accosting you. You're like, I'm not here.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like because things are just too crazy, and I'm walking at night, so
yeah,
you know, I mean, and although people tend to like, I've been here for a really long time, so like, I kind of feel as if like I'm left alone because like I clearly know where and what I'm doing. Like when I'm walking, I have purpose, and you can kind of tell that like I'm going somewhere. So I don't know. I tend to feel like people tend to leave you alone when you look like you have a purpose. You know, they're not interested in getting in your way because then that means that someone's going to come looking for you.
I'm telling you, Scott, if you were covered in tattoos, people would probably have such a different perception of you.
Actually, believe it or not, that perception that you're talking about is something that's why I like my beard.
Yeah.
So everyone assumes that I'm just some big motherfucker who will like, if
that
you
was
start with
Justin's
me, I will
impression of you. That was Justin's impression. My friend Justin, tall, skinny kid. I remember when we first met you, like, he was just like, I don't know. And I'm like, hello.
It's like teddy bear.
Right.
They just really have to get to know you.
What it is, Scott, it's the beard, and then you start talking, and people are like, what? Oh, okay. That's the teddy bear part.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in some
ways the beard
I am
helps.
really happy that I have the bear, like the bear persona. You know, it does help.
It's a little bit of protection.
It does. It adds. People have said that all the time, though. They're like, I've seen you around, and I always thought you'd be some like mean, you know, whatever. And I'm like, nope. Like so many people, like as soon as they hear my voice, they're like, whoa, and I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
Long beard is what it is.
We gotta get Scott covered in tattoos. I'm telling you, like.
I do want to get tattoos on it.
Oh my god! Yeah. Or we get them like those fake tattoo sleeves that they wear that look convincing. So they're coming out of the gym and it's just like shredded with these tattoos. And people are like, do not fuck with that person.
I wanna go to the gym with you one day, Scott, so we can be gym bros together. I wanna have I wanna have a gym bro moment with you.
I would love that. That'd be so much
Scott,
fun.
Or better yet, just get real tattoos and get them as arcane and witchcraft as possible, because nothing intimidates people more than obvious witchcraft tattoos
They're
that
like,
actually
That's
mean
actually what
shit.
I
And
want.
yeah.
That's what I want.
if you
I
have
want
like
very
arcane tattoos all over you and like some neck shit, nobody would fuck with you. I'm telling you. People are like, oh
I
yeah,
actually-
motherfucker, we're going home.
It's actually funny because I did want to I wanted to do it in a way that was like not super duper obvious, but I had a really great idea about doing like a small neck tattoo that was a sigil for like eloquence and communication, especially for like when I become a therapist. So that way I like to help me always sort of try to help me always know what to say. You know what I mean? To do the right thing, speak the right words. So those are like these are ideas that I have, like putting seals and sigils on my body that would
You can
pertain
get
to
white ink
things.
tattoos, so they kind of blend into your skin in a way. Like
I have seen that too.
yeah.
I don't know. I just want to do things and it's weird because like nowadays, people don't really care. Like there's therapists with like blue hair and like the tattoos everywhere. So like it's not really a big deal because millennials are becoming therapists now. But so I don't really give too much of a shit about it. I guess my thing is, and this isn't to say because I'm sure plenty of our listeners have like tons of tattoos. I'm just not a get a tattoo of Oogie Boogie kind of person. I like that, and you have a right to do those things. I think art on your body is beautiful. I'm not judging. If I get tattoos, I've always wanted them to be purposeful.
Yeah, like useful in a magical sense and purpose.
Yeah. Like just like I tell Darian all the time, like my wedding band has to be made of materials that I can use. I don't just want some useless ring on my finger for forever.
Right.
And he's like, thanks. And I was like, I love you more than anything, but it's silver and bog oak. That's what I want. I want a silver and bog oak ring.
This bitch. This bitch.
But yeah, keeping verbal charms or cantrips, which cantrip, by the way, is a real word. You can look it up.
Look it
keeping up. little magics that you can sling on the spot when you need to is a useful skill.
Yeah, and if you come up with any, please share them with us because we want to hear and we want to because I will totally memorize your shit and use it and try it for myself because
also real quick coming from me, they don't need to be like traditional little folk charms, by the way. That's just my style, but I don't only do that, I promise. So if you come up with something just personally, still share it. It's still valid. Just let you all know.
Any other concluding thoughts from anyone else before we wrap up?
Nah, nothing that won't incriminate me.
Chris was
also
wondering.
Carry a knife in your back pocket.
Yeah,
that's illegal.
It was a joke.
Is it illegal to carry it in your back pocket?
Yeah, it depends. It's only illegal if you get caught.
No, I mean here I know you can have a knife on you. It just can't be a certain length.
Yeah, in Canada, it's weird. It depends on where you are. In the city, they usually assume that you have ill intent, but if you're anywhere remotely woodsy, you
it's
can
just
actually
a tool.
just reasonably defense it and be like, dude, it's a defense against animals. What the fuck do you want me to just die if like a fucking mountain lion jumps out? No court in the country will convict you for walking around in the fucking middle of nowhere where there's actual mountain lions with a fucking hunting knife on you. That's just reasonable cause.
Yeah,
right?
it's like you kind of need a knife. No, Chris in the
but
chat
it's different if you're going out in the city.
Chris in the chat was asking if you were okay, Rue, because you've been quiet this episode. So.
I just realized I was muted for like straight up 20 minutes.
Okay.
I was talking into the empty air. Yep. As I do.
Gosh.
Smoking way too much, Chris.
Alrighty. I think we're good here to wrap up. Again, like if we want to hear if you have anything to, kind of brainstorm and contribute to this, because this is something that I want to keep workshopping. I'm really focused on it. But We do have a Discord. I don't know if anyone else is watching us. It says we have 5 viewers. So I think there might be
Cool.
someone else watching us other than Chris and Flowitch. So if you are in here and you're not aware, we do have a Discord community. There's a bunch of links here on the Kick page. We've got Ko-fi. We do have a supporter on Ko-fi. We got a $10 donation. I think I mentioned that last time we recorded, but it's worth mentioning again. So we're very happy to get any support because we are a garage band effort, and everything is self-funded. So we appreciate it. And we do have some merch if you want to check that out. And then after our debut at South Jersey Pagan Pride Day on October 7th, I believe.
Ooh.
So after that date, our plan is to start to roll out everything for Betwixt Occult Supplies, which is going to be Occult Supplies brought to you by us. So I'm hoping that will be I'll be able to get everything up online and ready to go. So fun little things in the works. I know I've been talking about the shop for a while, but I think I just wanted to try it. I wanted to pilot it in person first and see how people were receptive to the products. And then we'll kind of see what happens. Yeah, Chris, so Philly Pagan Pride happened, but we are actually, we organize Philly Pagan Pride, but South Jersey Pagan Pride is an event that we're going to be vending at for the first time. So it will be an experience. Alrighty. So with that, we are going to wrap up here, and we will see everyone next week. Next week? Yeah, that sounds good. Next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.